Since humans first cleared the sands away from the Great Sphinx, ancient Egypt has captivated our imagination. Ancient Egypt's wide range of artifacts, technologies, and monuments has had a profound cultural influence on both ancient and modern cultures. This civilization is credited with many inventions that revolutionized the world and are still used today. Stay tuned as we count down to uncover Egypt's greatest discoveries. Number 10. Eye makeup. Even if eye makeup may not be as significant a discovery as the wheel or the use of fire, it still gives the Egyptians a run for their money. It has never been out of style since eye makeup was first created around 4000 BCE. More impressive is that some societies with a strong emphasis on beauty still use methods that the Egyptians invented thousands of years ago to produce cosmetics. They created kohl, a dark cream still widely used today, by combining soot with the mineral galena. By coloring the ointment with galena and a mineral known as malachite, they could also create green eye makeup. The Egyptians were infamous for using a solid hand when applying eyeliner, but fashion was only one factor. They also thought that rubbing a thick layer of the substance on their eyes might treat several eye conditions and even protect them from evil. Number 9. Calendar. Without a calendar to remind us of our doctor's appointments and key meetings, many of us would be lost. But in ancient Egypt, a calendar could represent the difference between feast and famine. Ancient Egyptians had no method of predicting when the yearly flooding of the Nile would start without a calendar. A few thousand years before the Common Era, they began employing one because, without that information, their entire agricultural system would be in danger. The Egyptians divided time into three primary periods: the harvest, which occurred after the sowing and growing of the crops, and the inundation season, which lasted for 1/3 of the year. One calendar year comprised these three seasons, each of which had 120 days. They decided on the naked eye appearance of the dog star as the official start of each year. The calendar was short, but it wasn't until later that it was realized the civic and agricultural years began at the same time. Number 8. Government. While the pharaoh was the sole ruler of ancient Egypt, the nation was governed by a rule of law. The pharaoh was regarded as a living god, raising him above a monarch. Pharaohs were granted the divine authority to govern, and their crowning transformed them into gods. They had complete ownership of both the land and the people. The country needed to remain peaceful, and that was their only responsibility. Egypt was the nation in the ancient world that fought the fewest wars compared to other ancient civilizations. There was no need for military power because the pharaohs were the people's leaders in all spheres of life, including politics, religion, etc. The religious component of their reign was crucial above all else. In order to succeed in the afterlife, people were prepared to follow them. The survival of Egypt depended critically on a pharaoh's afterlife resurrection and continuation as a god in the afterlife. Number 7. Written language. Drawings have long been used to convey messages. For example, in 30,000 BCE, cave paintings were discovered in France and Spain. But it would take thousands of years for the earliest writing systems to emerge from Mesopotamia and Egypt, turning pictures and paintings into the first written language. Pictograms, the earliest dating back to 6000 BCE, served as the basis for the Egyptian writing system. Pictograms had some restrictions despite being straightforward representations of the words they stood for. Over time, the Egyptians expanded their writing system with additional components, such as alphabet-like letters representing specific sounds and other characters, enabling them to write out names and abstract concepts. The writing contains stories about conflict, politics, and culture that help us understand ancient Egyptian society. Undoubtedly, we owe the Rosetta Stone a debt of gratitude for helping us interpret the writing. Number 6. Papyrus Sheets. No one can doubt that the Chinese invented paper around 140 BCE. Still, many people are unaware that the Egyptians had developed admirable alternatives thousands of years earlier from the papyrus plant. This stiff, reed-like plant was found growing in swampy locations along the Nile, among other places. Its stiff, fibrous inside proved suitable for manufacturing lasting sheets of writing material and sails, sandals, mats, and other ancient Egyptian requirements. Following the creation of the sheets, they were frequently merged into scrolls, subsequently filled with anything from religious writings to literature and even music. The lengthy process of making papyrus was maintained as a closely guarded secret by the ancient Egyptians, allowing them to sell papyrus sheets across the region. The procedure was never recorded, thus it was finally lost until 1965 when Dr. Hassan Ragab discovered a way to produce papyrus sheets. Number 5. The plow. Although historians are unsure of the exact origin of the plow, evidence shows that the Sumerians and Egyptians were among the earliest civilizations to use it around 4000 BCE. The plows, which were probably made from adapted hand tools, were so light and inefficient that they came to be known as scratch plows due to their inability to penetrate the earth deeply. Additionally, the plows were powered solely by manual labor. For instance, wall paintings depict 4 men working together to move a plow through the field, not the best way to spend the day in the intense Egyptian sun. That changed around 2000 BCE when the Egyptians began mounting oxen to their plows. Early models were attached to cattle horns, but they interfered with how well the animal could breathe. Later versions were far more successful and included a system of straps. Ancient Egypt's use of the plow, coupled with the regular beat of the Nile River, revolutionized farming and made it simpler for Egyptians than it may have been for any other society at the time. Number 4. Breath mints. The next time you browse the 7-Eleven counter for Mentos or breath savers, remember to appreciate the ancient Egyptians for coming up with a solution to mask the unpleasant odors in our mouths. Similar to today, in ancient Egypt, foul breath was frequently a sign of poor dental hygiene. The Egyptians, unlike us, did not consume large quantities of foods and sugary beverages that caused tooth decay. Still, the stones they used to grind the flour for their bread added a lot of sand and grit to their diet, which wore down the tooth enamel and exposed the pulp, leaving it susceptible to infection. The Egyptians created the first mints as a blend of frankincense, myrrh, and cinnamon that were boiled with honey and formed into pellets to overcome the foul aromas from their decaying lips. Number 3. Bowling. If it weren't for the ancient Egyptians, the writers of the 1998 comedy The Big Lebowski, which features crucial scenes in a bowling alley, might have had to come up with a different theme. Archaeologists have found a room with a set of lanes and a collection of balls of different sizes in Narmuthios, a town 56 miles south of Cairo that was occupied by the Romans in the 2nd and 3rd century CE. The lane was roughly 13 feet long, 7.9 inches wide, and 3.8 inches deep, with a 4.7-inch square opening in the middle. Number 2. Medicine. The Edwin Smith Papyrus is an ancient Egyptian book of surgery written around 1600 BC. It demonstrates that the Hippocratic Oath was created 1,000 years before Egyptians invented medical surgery. It covers a list of surgical equipment and surgical instances involving head, neck, and chest traumas. The first instruments were discovered in the tomb of Kar, who was referred to as the physician of the palace and the guardian of the king's secrets. Also known as the birthplace of neurology, ancient Egypt. Egyptian medicine was a blend of magical and scientific procedures. Both approaches were equally effective. Magic was utilized when the cause was concealed and when the cause was subjectively evident. The Egyptians' extensive knowledge of anatomy resulted from mummification as the foundation for everything. Number 1. Toothpaste. Egyptians experienced many dental issues, mainly due to the grit and sand in their bread, which wore down their enamel. They tried to keep their teeth clean despite not having access to dentistry. It appears that toothpicks were buried with mummies, so they might use them in the afterlife to remove food particles from their teeth. They share the credit with the Babylonians for developing the first toothbrushes, which were made of the frayed ends of wooden twigs. However, the Egyptians also contributed significantly to dental hygiene with the invention of toothpaste. Pumice, ashes, burnt eggshells, and powdered cow hooves were among the early ingredients which undoubtedly made for a less than refreshing morning dental routine. The Egyptians left behind a rich cultural legacy, magnificent pyramids, and scientific advances that influenced how we live today. From beauty to health, ancient Egypt directly impacted many aspects of our life today. That's all for today's video. Subscribe for more content just like this one and share it with your friends. Also, don't forget to like and share.